Okay, we keep having technical difficulties, but I think we've got it all worked out, at least for today. So here we are. Welcome to our YouTube show for God's Good Table. Today's subject is the natural medicine cabinet, or cleaning out your medicine cabinet and replacing it with better things. Now, I have to say, I actually don't have a lot of stuff, well, like nothing in my medicine cabinet that I wouldn't want to have. So rather than saying not this, not that, let's just go into what should be in your medicine cabinet. Now, I will say aspirin and ibuprofen and things like that are not things that I use. Baby aspirin is often prescribed as even a blood thinner for people who have perhaps mild heart problems. But the problem with using baby aspirin for that, or for using ibuprofen and acetaminophen, is they're very hard on your kidneys, and they can actually cause tiny perforations in the gut, leading to autoimmune disorders. So we're not even gonna go over that at all. We just don't want to use it. So what do we use? Well, I'm going to give a quick mention of a video that we posted earlier this year or last year. It's on our YouTube channel, and it is a respiratory ailment protocol that we utilize in our home here. For that, you can go to that and watch what we do for helping especially acute respiratory ailments. I'm not talking things like asthma, although there's a place for even the protocol or components of that protocol, even for asthma, but that's not going to cure it. So if you're just experiencing colds and croup and that kind of thing, you can refer to that video to know exactly what we do. But we're going to do a general overview today of what I use in my home for my family for all kinds of ailments. And I'm going to give you a quick peek. This should give it all away. My medicine cabinet is made up almost entirely of herbs. Not 100%, but almost entirely. They are the backbone of everything that I do. So I first want to talk about how you can learn more to help yourself and your family using herbal medicine. And I'll show you the two books that I use and that I originally learned from. These are pretty well worn. This is my favorite book about medicinal herbs. It's Penelope Odie's Complete Medicinal Herbal. It is a beautiful book, and that's important to me because I like pretty pictures, but it helps me to remember, and it may help you too. So this book has a page, actually a 2-page spread, for a massive amount of medicinal herbs. It tells you what parts are used, what parts of the plant, be they the aerial parts above the ground, the roots, the seeds, the flowers. But this is an absolutely stunning and excellent resource to learn how to use herbs. The companion to that book, which I also have found useful, is the Home Herbal by the same author, Penelope Odie. We will put links for these books in the comments, and they are on our resource page at godsgoodtable.com. The Home Herbal book is good because it does show you how to make all kinds of herbal preparations, as well as giving you information about what or how to discover what herbs might be useful for different things within your own family. And it also gives a rundown of a wide variety of herbs, but certainly not as in-depth as the other book. It even shows you how to grow herbs. We're also adding a new book to our resource list, and we'll also give a link to that. That is how to grow your own medicinal herbs. That's not the title. I don't remember the exact title. Anyway, this shows you how to make herbal infusions and tinctures and salves, and I've done this for years. If I can do it, you can too. I was a busy mama on a homestead raising 9 kids, and I still had time to make herbal preparations. And I harvested and still do a lot of my own herbs, actually, most of my own herbs. So we're going to talk primarily about herbs then and all of their uses. But I do use a couple of things besides just herbs. So to start off, I'm going to go into wound care with kids around and with people working on cars and machinery. We often have cuts, scrapes, and all kinds of wounds that have to be taken care of pretty quickly. So first off, I'm going to say that witch hazel, this has aloe vera in it, is very useful for cleaning and soothing wounds. My friend Rachel has this company, Forever Pure. You can purchase these on Amazon. Again, we'll provide a link. But Forever Pure witch hazel with aloe vera is a good liquid just for general cleanliness of wounds, topical wounds, obviously. So good to clean. When there is the possibility of infection, maybe you step on a rusty nail or you scrape on something really dirty, hydrogen peroxide, good old $3 a bottle from Walmart, hydrogen peroxide is the thing that we always use. I just squirt a little on. Sometimes I use it twice, and as it bubbles up and the bubbles die back, you know that you're getting rid of most of the yucky stuff that can cause infections. I also use this for another purpose that I'll get to after we go through wound care. So I'm setting it over here. I do use castor oil. When there is a surface abrasion or a bruise and you want to soothe it, castor oil mixed with essential oils are my go-to. Essential oils of things like clove and rosemary and oil of oregano, which I don't have sitting here, but you can put a few drops of any of those herbs, or you can use doTERRA's On Guard or Young Living's Thieves. Just put a few drops in about a teaspoon of castor oil and rub it onto the wound or the bruise. And the castor oil is a penetrating natural oil that will help for the medicinal benefits of those herbs from the essential oils to penetrate and get in and work their magic. So castor oil. And again, I also use castor oil for another purpose. So I'm going to set that over here. Okay, I'm going to give a shout out right now to my favorite herb company because you're going to see a lot of their stuff on my table and in my medicine chest. That company is Natural Hope Herbal. And the next product that I want to talk about is their People's Paste. Natural Hope Herbals produces their own herbs on their completely organic, clean farm in central Pennsylvania. I visited their farm back in late June when I gave a talk there at an event that they had. So having visited the farm personally, I can tell you it's one of the cleanest places that I've ever seen because it is so isolated. And they grow this massive quantity of clean herbs on that farm. And then they harvest and dry them right away. Some of them are utilized while they're still fresh, depending on the herb. And so all of their herbs go into either teas to use as a decoction or mostly tinctures. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But also things like People's Paste. So there are some topical dry things and some herbal salves as well. But People's Paste is useful for drawing toxins and infectious agents out of wounds, and also things like slivers. When you have a deeply embedded sliver, you just take a little, see, I do use mine, so it's open and you can see it contains a variety of herbs and I think activated charcoal. I'm not sure. No, slippery elm, Oregon grape, bayberry, garlic, which is very potent, and myrrh gum. I use myrrh a lot for other things as well. But this will help to neutralize contaminants, and it does help to draw. The other thing that is really useful for drawing any potentially infectious agent out of the skin is clay or activated charcoal, or clay and activated charcoal. You just simply make a little paste. If you take about, depending on the size of the wound, of course, but start with about maybe a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of clay, and then the activated charcoal, you can get it loose. This happens to be in capsule form. So you just break open the capsule, mix it with the clay, and make a paste with just a little bit of water. And then you just apply it topically to the wound. You kind of pat it down and leave it there for a while. Especially if you're using hot water, it will help because it will open up the pores of your skin in order to help the charcoal and the clay to draw more out more quickly. I do use activated charcoal for another purpose, and I'm going to set that aside. And I do also use clay for another purpose, a couple of purposes, but I want to talk about one absolutely magnificent, useful, wonderful purpose to have clay. This is Redmond clay. One of our granddaughters had a really bad burn a few years ago, and my daughter was trying to figure out what to do, and a mutual friend told her, use clay. So she mixed up some clay with water, and she put the paste on her daughter's skin. Within minutes, the pain was gone. And within a week, the burns were gone. They were healed, and they were bad burns. Since that time, I've used it that way, and I've spoken with others who have used the clay and made a paste for burns. And I'm telling you, it works every time. It can be definitely second-degree burns, but I've even been told about third-degree burns. It prevents infection, and it promotes very, very speedy healing. So I am never without this stuff. I even travel with it. So clay for sure. All righty. I'm going to show you a suspension of bentonite clay, which I use primarily internally for upset stomachs or food poisoning, but you can also use this on the surface of your skin. But I do tend to prefer to make my own paste instead so that it's a little bit thicker and it will stay on the skin better. This is pretty slippery and has a fantastic secondary or primary purpose, actually. But keeping Sonnet number 7 on hand, the bentonite clay suspension, is just something I've always done for probably 30 years since I first learned about it. As far as actually healing wounds, there's nothing more potent than comfrey root powder. I also use comfrey leaf. In fact, my friend Lacey Dixon is on her way to my house right now from North Carolina, and she's bringing me some comfrey for me to plant. I had it on the farm, but I haven't had it here yet. So I'll be planting everything that she brings me. And I will use both the root and the leaf. I sometimes use comfrey leaf lightly steamed as a bandage, and I apply comfrey root powder to the surface. I also make a very simple and very effective wound healing powder, which I went to reach for, and I've lent my little jar out to one of my daughters, I think. But I simply mix 3 parts of comfrey root powder with 1 part of golden seal root powder. Golden seal is a very potent anti-inflammatory, and it kills germs and bacteria. So it is really effective to help prevent infection and excessive inflammation, while the comfrey root really, really expedites healing of wounds. I've seen it work wonders. So I'm never without comfrey root either. You can dry your own, or you can order. My favorite company to order from is Mountain Rose Herbs. I have a cabinet full of things for Mountain Rose Herbs, and comfrey root is one of those that I never, ever am without. Now, you could easily make a simple little paste with comfrey root and clay and a little bit of activated charcoal to put on a stubborn wound and help it to heal and not get infected. That's just another simple thing to do. But comfrey root is always in my medicine cabinet and won't be without it. Now, to soothe a sunburn or a painful bruise, I also use aloe vera gel. I often just snip the leaves from my aloe vera plant, or I keep some gel on hand. I make soap and I make lotions and potions, so I keep this on hand and it's easy to grab. But this is very soothing, so it's a good thing to have on hand, but having the actual plant is perfectly fine, and that works great. So aloe vera or aloe vera gel of some sort. This is a healing salve that a friend of mine made, and it contains comfrey root, but also elderberry leaf, and not leaf, but flower, excuse me. And it's made with olive oil and beeswax. These are super simple to make. And if you do pick up a book like this one, you'll see how easy it is to make them. But to make your own herbal salves, you basically just need essential oils or fresh herbs. Fresh rather than dried is my recommendation. And some olive oil, some beeswax, and then you can just run with it and make anything that you need, including insect repellent and all kinds of things. But healing salve for wounds and bruises and such. All right. Now, I want to talk just for a moment about homeopathics, because I'm sure some of you are wondering. I do really love homeopathy. I am not as well versed on it as I would like to be, and I am planning on taking a course so that I can learn more. But I do keep about 20 different homeopathic remedies in my cabinet. They never, ever, ever cause harm. They just really can't. Unless you're severely allergic to some compound. I've never heard of anyone being allergic to anything homeopathic, because there is just the most minute little trace amount of any compound in the remedy. I just can't even think how you could be that allergic to something. But I'm not going to say never. I don't want to get in trouble here. But I use homeopathy a lot for things like leg cramps and headaches and respiratory ailments and things like that. So I just don't want to go in depth into homeopathy because I am not that well versed in it. I am trying to learn, but there are some really good remedies on the market and some good books. There's actually another book by DK, which I also have and didn't think to bring up, that is all about homeopathy, and it helps you to figure out what strengths of remedies to use and how often and that kind of thing. There are several that are just in my car and I keep them with me. So homeopathy is definitely something to look into and give a try, because it's never really failed me. Usually something like arnica, for instance, you're in an accident or there's some kind of trauma and you take some arnica or give it to your child and it settles things down pretty quickly. That doesn't mean it's a cure-all. You might want to use other things in addition to that. So homeopathy. Now, I also want to talk about things like infections, say tooth infections, sore throats, and that kind of thing. Everybody has salt in their cabinet, right? And hopefully it's Redmond sea salt or Celtic sea salt, a pure and unrefined salt. When I say pure, I don't mean it's purified sodium. We never recommend that, but a whole salt. I keep a little jar in my cabinet with a pint-sized jar. It's a teaspoon of salt. And if somebody has a sore throat or earaches, I have them gargle with a mouthful of that, to which I will add a generous squirt of hydrogen peroxide. It makes a huge difference, and pretty quickly, but you got to do it more than once. If somebody's getting sick, you do it a few times a day. But just a saline solution made with natural unrefined salt and a little bit of hydrogen peroxide, gargle for 30 seconds, and it really helps you to kick the yuck out and get over it. And on that note, I want to talk about ear infections. Ear, nose, and throat. Obviously, they all go together. When any of us are beginning to come down with either a sore throat or ear infection, I understand that the two are connected, as are the sinuses. By the way, you can do a saline solution flush through the nose with a neti pot or just a straw or just drops, and that's wonderful for a sinus infection. But in addition to that, I have the patient, sometimes it's me, thankfully not often, lay on their side. And the first thing I will do is I will pour a few drops of hydrogen peroxide into the ear canal and have the patient lie still for 5 minutes and let it bubble away. And then I put a towel or a gauze there and I have them lay on the other side. And it's important you do both ears. The same thing, a squirt of hydrogen peroxide, laying still for about 5 minutes, and then sit up with a towel, let it drain. But I follow that up with what I just call ear oil. And this is super easy to make. I take some olive oil and a clove of garlic, and I smash the clove of garlic. And I do smash. I don't mince. I don't just peel, but I smash it. I do take the peel off, and then I pop it into about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a pan, and I warm it. I don't make it hot. I just make it warm. Now you can add a macerated leaf of sage to that, or mullein. Oh man, I have to go harvest my mullein now that I think about it. Mullein is another wonderful plant, and it grows wild. And the second ear plant in particular is especially useful medicinally. But I'll take a little mullein, which actually looks a lot like sage, only bigger, and I warm it in the olive oil. Even if all you have is garlic, that's fine. But I warm it in the olive oil, and then I put 3 or 4 drops again into the ear, laying for about 5 minutes, gently massaging, and then turn over and do the other ear. So you start with cleaning the ear using hydrogen peroxide, just 3%, and then putting the soothing and healing ear oil in. Now, when someone is coming down with something or they have an acute infection, again, nose, throat, ears, you really need to be doing this about 4 times a day. You can do it more, but at least 4 times a day, and keep it up. When you or your child or whomever begins to feel better, don't stop, keep doing it, because the fact that they're getting better, that they're getting over it, doesn't mean that the infection's all gone. You need to continue, or it will come back with a vengeance. But this is one of those things that I always have on hand. So garlic in olive oil, just warmed lightly. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about respiratory ailments, colds, flu, that kind of thing. My first line of defense is always going to be internal. I like elderberry syrup. Natural Hope Herbals has 2.5 times the potency of elderberry syrup. I've been really shocked at how effective elderberry is. Just unbelievable. Um, a year or so ago, I was doing some back-to-back events, exhibiting and speaking, and I got some kind of a nasty cold. It was in my chest and it was in my head, and just didn't feel good, but I had to keep on going, and probably that's why it got worse, because I just kept on going instead of resting. But I was taking all of my usual things, and it would start to get better, and then it would come back, or it would get stronger. So I picked up some elderberry syrup. Within hours, I started to feel tremendously better. So I continued to take the elderberry syrup until I forgot. Like the next day, I think I might have, maybe I bought a small bottle, I believe, and then I ran out. So I stopped taking it. I thought, well, I'll be okay. It started to come back. So I got another bottle of elderberry. And again, it took a little bit longer this time because whatever it was had taken a foothold. So it took a little bit longer. But by the end of the day, I was kicking it. So take your elderberry. It is a super potent immune aid. Very good product. I promote Natural Hope Herbals because I use their products and I found them to be, for the most part at least, more effective than any other products I've ever used. And again, I visited their facilities and their farm, and you just can't beat their products, including the elderberry. Now, the other two things that I do routinely for an acute illness is liposomal vitamin C and monolauric acid. Normally, I'm using just natural vitamin C. I'm making kefir soda with high vitamin C fruits and drinking a little of that. Or I make bombs with camu and acerola cherry and a little bit of honey. That works to increase your vitamin C intake. It's really effective. But when you have an acute illness, I believe 100% that you need something more potent than a natural compound. So I hit it up with liposomal vitamin C. I forgot to order more and I'm out. I tend to share mine and it all went away. So I can't show you the bottle, but it is on our resource list, and I think Erin will probably put up a link for that. It is one of the key things in my medicine cabinet. Liposomal vitamin C. If it's in capsule form, which is what I generally have on hand, I recommend 2 capsules to equal about 2,000 milligrams 6 times a day with a lot of water, and monolauric acid. I order from Inspired Nutrition. They have an excellent product. I've used them for years. I've tried some other ones too, and they're fine. I just find for the price point that Inspired Nutrition is a good deal and it's a good product. So this comes with a little scoop. The little scoop is the appropriate amount. It's about a half a teaspoon. These are just pellets. You don't want to chew them. They do not taste good, believe me. But they're just little pellets, see? This is a concentrated form of monolauric acid, which is found in coconut oil. And does it ever kick butt? It just does. So I recommend taking a scoop of this with the 2,000 milligrams of liposomal C 4 to 6 times a day. You can start to taper off when you are actually getting better. But again, something I am never without, like the liposomal vitamin C that I happen to be out of right now. I got to fix that. I knew there was something I needed to order on Amazon and I forgot. Okay. Monolauric acid, good for internal use when we're having any kind of an infection. It can be a bladder infection. It can be whatever, but that stuff works really well. All right. Now, another thing that is good for respiratory ailments is licorice root. You can make a decoction, a tea. You're making a tea with it. That's what a decoction is. This is also good for digestive disorders, especially when you have intestinal distress, because it soothes the mucosal lining of your digestive tract, your large and small intestine. Licorice root is a really good thing to have on hand, and you can tincture it, you can decoct it, but good thing to have on hand. So I do. I always have that. One of my big things for respiratory ailments is diffusers. We used to use the humidifiers, and you can use those too. They always say not to put essential oils in them, but I do. However, most of the time I just run diffusers. I run them anyway. And if there's something going around, I run them so that we breathe in good essential oils, and it helps our lungs and it helps our whole bodies to kick things out. So I have 5 diffusers, I think, just on my main floor living space. I usually am running 2 or 3 at a time when there's an illness going around. I use distilled water and I use pure essential oils. Some of the oils that I use are lavender and rosemary and eucalyptus. Now, these are big bottles because I'm a soap maker and all of that, so I use a larger quantity. But lavender oil is very calming, soothing, and it also will kick some butt. Rosemary, likewise. Eucalyptus as well. I like lemon eucalyptus. So essential oils in the diffuser are wonderful. And then I also have some tinctures, some commercial tinctures on hand. I also have a couple from Natural Hope. I didn't bring everything out to the table that I have because it's a lot. But this is from Nutramedics. I've used their products to kick Lyme disease in my husband and a couple of my kids and myself. This particular one is Cemento, and it is good for Lyme disease, but it's also good for other hard to kick things. So set that aside. Now, let's go to headaches and fevers. First, I want to talk about the purpose of fevers. I don't ever recommend that you try to bring a child's or your own fever down. That's such a common thing that people do today, and it's really sad because God gave us fevers for a purpose. It's to help immobilize the things that are in our system that are making us sick. It's probably often the first line of defense in our immune system. It's super critical. A fever really helps us to kick out the bad guys. So the higher the fever, the harder your body is working to get rid of something really potent. It seems to be that viruses produce a higher fever than bacterial infections, and that's up for debate. And whether or not there are even viruses is up for debate. All I know is that those kinds of illnesses tend to make the body's temperature go higher. It has to work much harder to neutralize, immobilize, and neutralize whatever it is that's in the body making us sick. So please don't try to bring down a fever. Now, unless the fever gets really super high. I have seen fevers as high as 105 in one of my kids years ago. That happens to be Erin, and obviously she survived. So at 105, I'm a little bit worried, but I'm wrapping the child or the person up in blankets to help maintain the fever, to help the body to do its work so that we can get better. But feverfew does help with that also. It helps the fever. And if the fever starts to get dangerously high, making a decoction or a tincture with feverfew will help to regulate the temperature. The other thing that feverfew does is it helps with headaches. I don't get a headache very often. I used to get them. I actually used to get migraines. It's been years, thankfully, because I figured out why I was getting them. But feverfew definitely works as an analgesic to help with headaches and aches and pains, but headaches generally. So I grow my own. This is 2 plants, and I'm about to add a third into here, but right at the moment it's 2. You just pinch off. Whenever you're pinching herbs, by the way, you want to pinch just above a double leaflet, usually a double or but just above leaflets on the stem, because then that will branch out with more leaves and it will become fuller rather than pinching all the way down or pinching beneath a leaflet. So if you have a child with a fever and a bad headache and you want to help relieve them, just pinch off a few pieces and make a tea with a little bit of raw honey. Raw honey, good for a lot of things too, including wound healing. Oops, I forgot. I'm sorry. Raw honey from a local beekeeper is also in my cupboard all the time. But when you're making a decoction to help someone feel better, you want to use some raw honey. It has antimicrobial effects. You just don't want to make it super hot. So you add it after you've made the decoction. Fever tree works great for that. Upset stomach, the 2 things I use are ginger. Sometimes I just make an infusion, a tea, again with fresh ginger. But I always have my ginger beer bug on my counter anyway, so I just give a tablespoon of that. And it does really help to calm the stomach. Also, sauerkraut juice from fermented, uncanned, unpasteurized sauerkraut, or the same fermented pickles, unpasteurized. A little of that brine, and it really does help to neutralize food poisoning or whatever is irritating the intestinal system. So ginger, fresh ginger as a tea, or again, ginger, if you have a ginger bug or you just want to keep an infusion going, you can do a tincture if you want, but for the quantity, you're going to probably want fresh ginger or ginger bug, or the brine of a ferment. Okay. I want to say I have a stressful life. It's getting better. It's getting easier as kids are leaving home, getting jobs, growing up. And I am trying to focus more on God's good table and less on my job that I'm handing over to someone else very soon. But nonetheless, life is stressful, right? Even if your life isn't always stressful, it certainly is sometimes stressful. I have been using Natural Hope Herbal's de-stress with hemp. I often do talk about the benefits of CBD coming from hemp, or even the medicinal benefits of marijuana in small amounts. And I'm not talking high THC or anything like that. For pain relief, if somebody's dying, definitely way better than morphine, which actually accelerates death and the growth of cancer. So why would we want that? But the hemp plant, the marijuana plant itself, of course, it's been hybridized tremendously. Some has tiny amounts of THC, some has a lot, some has none or almost none. Natural Hope Herbals produces hemp products that do not have THC, but they are very calming. They help your brain to calm down. They help with things too, like seizures. I have a couple of friends who use CBD products and even, yes, some with THC for their kids who have vaccine damage and have seizures. So hemp products are really good for that. And I do use this when I'm having an especially stressful day and at night, Natural Hope Herbals also has a natural sleep concoction just like this, which is in my bedroom. I use that regularly as well to help me sleep at night. So there you go, sleep aid. People will ask me about melatonin. Do you use melatonin to help you sleep? No. And here's why. Your body naturally produces melatonin. When you start supplementing with melatonin to help you or your kids sleep, the body stops producing it or slows its production. And then you get yourself caught in this conundrum of, wait, I don't have enough melatonin to fall asleep. Then you're artificial melatonin dependent. The other problem with taking melatonin is it helps you go to sleep, but it does nothing to help you stay asleep. Melatonin is a hormone that is for falling asleep, not staying asleep. Whereas a hemp product does help you to stay asleep. It helps you to relax and it helps your brain to settle down so that you can get a good night's sleep. Okay, now I want also to talk a little bit about just using medicinal herbs. Anybody, anywhere can grow a little pot of herbs. And if all you can do is grow a few herbs in a pot on your windowsill, then this is what I recommend. This is both medicinal and culinary, by the way, but we're talking medicine right now. Thyme is a very basic herb. Of course, it's super useful in the kitchen, but it's also a really, really potent medicinal herb. So one of my kids frequently, not as much anymore, but was having some respiratory problems and still does on occasion. I make her a simple tea of fresh thyme, fresh sage, fresh lavender, smells good, fresh rosemary, and lemon balm, or it can be another mint. I have about 5 different mints growing outside. But this little package, oh, isn't it pretty? It's really potent medicinally. It helps for the lungs to clear and it helps them to settle down. It helps the head to feel better and it helps you to overcome ailments. So, just keep a few on hand. Now, you can also just buy bulk herbs, dried herbs, these same herbs, and make a decoction, but the fresh herb is the most potent. So I'll grab a handful of these, no more than this, even half this much if it's a smaller mug. And I just put it in an infusing basket or just in a mug with hot water and I let it steep covered for 15 minutes. You cover it because you don't want the aromatics to release into the air and then you're losing some of the medicinal qualities. And then I just add about a half a teaspoon of raw honey. Stir that up, maybe add a dash of coconut milk if you want, but you don't have to. I would not, however, use for respiratory ailments, I would especially not use any pasteurized dairy. I don't recommend pasteurized dairy anyway, but especially for this, don't. If you want something a little creamy, use coconut milk, full fat. Anyway, you just sip on this for a while, get it down, get a whole mug down within 30 minutes or so, and you're going to feel a difference. But it also is not only for relief, it's also for healing. Now, last thing we're going to do is this. We're going to make a tincture. I just want to show you how easy it is to make an herbal tincture. And in this case, I'm going to make one for respiratory ailments. So I'm going to take my fresh thyme. I'm just going to kind of strip the leaves downward from the stem because the stems, you can throw them in a soup pot. You'll still get a little bit of flavor benefit, but medicinally, you're looking for the leaves. So I strip the stems and I toss it all into the jar. Okay, we're going to expedite this here and not be super fussy. You don't have to be super fussy. You're going to be straining it out anyway. And then I take my sage. You can kind of crunch it up in your hand, or you could even chew it and spit it out, but that's not very appealing, is it? It works though. It works really well. The macerating of your teeth and mixing in saliva actually releases more of the medicinal qualities. So, hey, if you don't mind doing that, do. I'm going to go ahead and put some mint in here. Now, I make tinctures with things like turmeric, ginger, black pepper. I also make infusions in ghee, and I stick that in the refrigerator, and that's a great anti-inflammatory. I do that for my husband in particular. But here is just how to make a simple tincture. So any kind of herbal product, it could be dandelion root for cleansing, dandelion and burdock for cleansing. Cayenne. Cayenne is actually a really good one to have on hand when you have older people around or somebody with heart problems, because a few drops of cayenne tincture under the tongue, if somebody looks like they're going into a heart attack, it often can stop the heart attack. And yeah, I know people who have done that. So the other thing that I want to add to this is a clove of garlic. Because this is a tincture, I'm not going for taste, all right? And this is not elephant garlic, but it is a jumbo garlic, and this one clove is going to be potent enough. I'm going to take a bottle and I'm going to smash it on the table. You want to break it open. Okay, there we go, just like we did for the ear oil. Okay, I'm putting that all in the jar, and I'm covering it with either grain alcohol or this is vodka. Most compounds that you're going to use medicinally are alcohol soluble rather. I also add just a little bit of maybe 10% of good water, clean water, oxymoron, but not chlorinated water, but water. Because that helps to extract just a little bit more of the water-soluble compounds. But I just shake this up and I let it steep for about a month. And I'll shake it once a day or a few times a week just to keep everything in motion. After which time I'll strain it and store it in a dropper bottle, like one of these. I save my empties. And then I have it to put a dropper full under the tongue when someone is having issues. So again, you can use different herbs for different purposes, but this works and it's super easy and that costs almost nothing. The main alcohol that I use for my tinctures is the same one that I use for my vanilla extract, which is essentially a tincture as well. And that is Prairie vodka. Prairie vodka is the only organic vodka that I know of that's widely available. It's produced in Green Bay, Wisconsin, or Door County, Wisconsin. And because it is clean and organic, I can trust it. So either that or a grain alcohol. Sometimes I can find that. But about 30 days, shaking once in a while, and you've got a potent medicine that you can use for many things. That covers the majority of my herbal medicine cabinet. I didn't go super in depth into some things. I did want to talk a little bit more about using essential oils, mixing them with castor oil for various purposes. I do have clove bud oil somewhere. That's something I use topically when teeth are hurting. But there's so much. I am very grateful that God has given us everything we need for food and medicine. It's all here. It's not to say that there is absolutely never a place for an antibiotic or another drug. I'm certainly thankful that when my husband had a massive heart attack 4.5 years ago, that there were hospitals, doctors, and drugs, because he'd be gone otherwise. So yes, there is a purpose for pharmaceuticals. However, I do believe that we grossly overuse them. And when it comes to being ill, our immune system is at least 75% based in our gut. So we don't want to be destroying our gut with antibiotics. So instead, let's look to God's medicine cabinet. All of the things that he gave us, primarily plants, but not solely plants. Let's just investigate, learn, and try some things out. I welcome your questions. I'll try to answer anything I can, or refer you to someone else if I don't have the answer. So that's it for today. A big shout out and great thanks to Natural Hope Herbals. Again, we have an affiliate link, I believe, with a discount code. My husband uses the heart, by the way, which does have cayenne and hawthorn berry and a few other things. We're very grateful for them. So do we have, okay, no questions. But I just want to say goodbye, and we'll see you next week when, I don't remember next week's topic, but we'll post it. So be on the lookout, and we'll see you then. Thank you.